Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. It's Erik Ten Hag's press conference before the FA Cup match. It's literally come right round the corner. We've got West Ham in the FA Cup at home at Old Trafford tomorrow night. I will be there. I'm sure lots of you will be there or watching it around the world, wherever you are. But Erik Ten Hag has been speaking about it, and he's been speaking about having back-to-back games. He's also got some injury updates for you, and also speaking about distractions and just being focused on continuing to win trophies with Manchester United, which is exactly what we want to hear. But good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome into the chat, welcome into the video. We're going to get through all Erik Ten Hag's quotes and speak about the match coming up tomorrow night. But first and foremost, I know I was on the match vlog, but I wasn't on the forum after the game. I was at Wembley. Congratulations to everybody celebrating the first major trophy that Manchester United has won in nearly 6 years. It has been a long time, but we've won it and I'm excited. And Erik Ten Hag wants to go for more, and I'm sure all of you do as well. And do you know what? I generally feel like I've blinked and there's another game around the corner, so we're going to get into it. But first of all, let's go for injury updates. And the injury updates are coming out from Erik Ten Hag that, surprise, surprise, I mean, would it really be another day at Manchester United if Martial was fit? No, Martial is injured again for this game. It was actually, if anyone saw the picture he got with the medical staff at Wembley, I thought that was class, like, because he's basically spent his whole season with them. Obviously he's contributed in parts, but it would be amazing to have Martial back fit. But unfortunately, nope, he's still not available, says Erik Ten Hag, which, I mean, it is what it is, isn't it? At this point of the season, I'm in the boat where if Martial is available, it's like a bonus for us, like it's like a bonus player. I don't really see him as a reliable member of the squad at this point, so it just is what it is. It's a shame. We love Martial. Ricky's gutted, already on the phone to me, asking if Martial's fit, but no, he's not. And also, other doubts that he's got. He said he has doubts over Fred and Shaw's fitness for tomorrow, so Fred and Shaw might be missing out tomorrow as well. To be honest with you, my personal opinion, I might be completely wrong, but with the game turnarounds and how much these games these Manchester United players are playing right now, I didn't expect Shaw or Fred to play just because of rotation, because of how many minutes they have been playing. But the fact that they are doubts is a bit worrying. We don't want them too injured. The vital part of the team at the moment, both starting players in the starting 11, so we need them to be fit. So I'm just a little bit worried about that situation. I'm hoping, because he said it's a doubt, that it's just like maybe a little bit of fatigue, maybe a little bit of a muscle strain, something like that, something we don't have to completely worry about. But Erik Ten Hag is always he doesn't give everything away. He holds his cards close to his chest when it comes to injuries. We saw that with Dalot before he was fit. At first it was just a knock, and then it turned into like a month nearly that he was out for. So I'm just hoping that these two players, Fred and Shaw, are going to be fit again. But to be honest with you, I would have expected Malacia to come in. I would have expected Sabitzer and McTominay to come in anyway, just because the amount of rotation that there is. But MKF says Casemiro and Sabitzer needs game time together. Exactly, that might give a good opportunity for Casemiro and Sabitzer to play with each other if Fred isn't quite fit enough to be in there. So I think that would be a good opportunity for Sabitzer as well. And yeah, people saying Sabitzer will start for sure. I just want to put it out there, that Sabitzer cameo at Wembley was very, very impressive. Very impressive. It was a brilliant substitution from Ten Hag to see the game in that light and see that we need extra legs in midfield. But it was a great cameo, and it really secured the win for us, in my opinion. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was another one. Adam B72 says Sabitzer time, Beth. Yeah, we'll get on to that. So Sabitzer coming into the team, I think it's a win-win for everybody. His tenacity is brilliant. To be honest with you, I watched him at Leipzig and I've watched him in the Champions League. I've obviously not watched every game that he's played closely. But what's surprising me at Manchester United is how aggressive this player is. Straight into tackles. I knew he could tackle players, but wow, he's tackling. He does not mess about. We need them sort of aggressive players playing for Manchester United, and he's definitely one of them. His passing is outstanding. There was one that, again, he put through at Wembley that he got called for a free kick because he likes to tackle, crunch through a player and then play the pass off on the counter-attack. Unfortunately, they called it a foul. I didn't think it was from where I was sat, but I'd have to like fully watch that back to see. But his tenacity, the way he gets around the pitch, I think, one, it gives Casemiro a little bit of extra cover, but two, Casemiro playing with him and Sabitzer being able to play alongside him, it lets us see what Sabitzer can do when he's actually playing more box-to-box and he's allowed to get into the attacking third, because we know this player has a brilliant shot on him. His passing is brilliant, so it'd be nice to see that duo together, and I think that's what we might end up seeing. It just depends if Casemiro plays. I think he will. because I think Erik Ten Hag is taking these cup competitions really seriously. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw McTominay start in that holding role. I really wouldn't be, just because of rotation and keeping players fit. Like, you've got to think about it. A game every 3 days. It's a lot. It's a lot of workload on these players right now, especially when it was Barcelona, which was a really exhausting game, and then the cup final as well. And a lot of people, I saw them complaining about maybe the type of football in the second half. You've got to think about the games these players are playing. We're going to have to see it out in whichever ways possible to keep everyone fit and get the results. But yeah, it is what it is. Get in the comments down below. Do you think Casemiro will start, or do you think it'll be McTominay? Adam B72 says, Beth, would you sign Sabitzer at the end of the season? A lot of people keeps asking me this. Yes, I would start Sabitzer. The reason being, sign Sabitzer. I would sign Sabitzer, and the reason being for this is, I think the rumoured price was around 20 to 30 million, around that mark. So say if we got him for 25 million, say if you end up selling McTominay for around 25, 26, 27 million, you are literally getting, in my opinion, a better player in for the same price. I think Sabitzer's got great tenacity, his tackling's brilliant, his passing's great, he's just at a higher technical level than McTominay, so he becomes a great squad player for us to have. I mean, you're going to have Eriksen. I suppose we're probably going to sign another midfielder as well, because I think Donny van der Beek's going to leave. Fred will probably stay, and I think he deserves to after the performances he's been putting in as of recently. But having Sabitzer there as a squad player to play will generally be a massive improvement on the squad. So I would go for that. And yeah, get in the comments down below. Would you sign Sabitzer as well? I'll be interested to see how that plays out. But he also got asked about the squad. A lot of questions flying around about Maguire. I suppose this is kind of the hype at the moment. Maguire's lifted the trophy with Bruno. He obviously came on for that substitute appearance, which we have seen him do frequently across the season, them last 10 minutes of a game to kind of see it out. We saw that happen again at Wembley. For me personally, I did see it as potentially maybe a little bit of he's the captain, so we're going to bring him on in a final kind of substitution. I don't know if it was necessarily needed, but I had absolutely no problem with everything that unfolded at Wembley. I was just happy that we lifted the trophy, if I'm being honest with you. I was happy we won it. If Maguire would have lifted it on his own, I would have thought that's a little bit sus, but the fact he lifted it with Bruno and he was like kind of, you know, having that conversation with Bruno, you could see it while they were doing it together. That was nice, that team spirit, that unity together. And do you know what? I'm just happy for the team in general. I don't think there needs to be so much focus around Maguire. I don't think Maguire wants it. I don't think the team wants it. I think we're a team. And that's exactly what Erik Ten Hag's been saying, because he got asked about players maybe not playing as much football and if they'll be important later down the line in the season. And he says he wants to make himself clear that they didn't win that game with just 11 players on the pitch. They won it as a squad and as a team. He says, I can count on them and I know they will be ready. There are great months and great games ahead. So he's saying this squad, it's a squad, it's not 11 players, and we all need to play our part. And again, it's great man management from Erik Ten Hag, because I think he's giving people just enough minutes to make them feel like they are involved. Obviously, the likes of Maguire and Lindelof are going to want to be playing more. We know Pellistri had a little bit of problem with his game time. His agent spoke up about it. And there'll be other players in the team that are a little bit disappointed that they're not playing every single game. But he is giving good substitute appearances to a lot of players, and he's making them feel part of these wins. And they are playing their parts as well. You've got to just look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka to kind of see this. Aaron Wan-Bissaka didn't feature in I don't think in any of the first half of the season, barely any, before the World Cup came along anyway. After the World Cup, he got his head down, he worked hard in training camp with Erik Ten Hag, he came in for Dalot when he was injured and couldn't play, and he's been absolutely insane since. That cameo again, his appearance off the bench, perfect substitution. He comes on, he pockets St Maximum, and he sees the game out, he's aggressive, he creates chances going forward. He was brilliant. So Erik Ten Hag's saying anyone can be part of this team. You've just got to play well off the bench. When you have the opportunities, take them. And I think that's the exact way it should be. No one should just have a free pass into the United first team. You've got to earn that, and Erik Ten Hag does go on to say that. And Tom Grant says, hi Beth, are you and Adam in the press box or vlogs tomorrow? I'm pretty sure it's vlogs. I'm just going to have it confirmed to me right now, but I'm pretty sure it is vlogs tomorrow. So there'll be the fan forum, which I'll be hosting, and then Adam will be doing vlogs outside Old Trafford as well. I'll probably pop over for like a minute before I go over to the fan forum. So we will be there if you want to come and see us and have your say and get into conversation. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people buzzing after the final that was at Wembley. But back onto the points, which is being part of this team, and if you want to play, you're going to have to earn your spot. And Erik Ten Hag did say this as well, by the way. He says, if players want to play first team football, you have to play well. When you get your chance, you have to play well. Players that play well in their spot keep their positions. Players that come in and play better than the people currently in their spot will get that position. He's very much, if you are playing at a high standard and you are winning those games of football, you will stay in this team and you will get your place. And again, I can revert back to Aaron Wan-Bissaka and the whole saga with him. He's come in, not a peep to the media, got his head down, worked hard, and he's now playing really well and he's getting his opportunities consistently. I mean, he started against Barcelona and then Dalot ended up coming on. Dalot started against Newcastle, but then Wan-Bissaka ended up coming on and basically he played a full half of football. So he's getting his opportunity and he's playing big games, he's playing big moments, and that's because he's coming to the team and he's played at a very high standard. If the likes of Maguire or Lindelof or Malacia want to be coming into this team, the standards are there. You've got Varane, Martinez and Luke Shaw. You've got to be able to play better than them. At the moment, that's not going to happen, but that's what you call setting high standards, and that's what you call, basically, you can't just walk into this team. You've got to play your best every single moment and play for the badge, and that is the atmosphere that Erik Ten Hag is creating. We've seen over previous seasons, players have just been guaranteed a starting spot. Bench players haven't really had a way into the first team. They've just always been bench players. We know now Erik Ten Hag will 100% give you game time if you play to an elite standard, and that's kind of what the message is across all players, and hence you get work rate in the training ground, you get players hungry, and that's exactly where trophies are going to come from, out of hunger and squad unity, which I think Erik Ten Hag is building out brilliantly. And obviously, not every player can play every single minute of every game. There's going to be opportunities, and do you know what? If you win a Carabao Cup or you win an FA Cup, a lot of these fringe players will have played quite a lot of minutes in these competitions through a lot of rotation. So it's nice to see. It really is. And Erik Ten Hag, his man management, I think, is really, really elite right now. Even the fact, I know I'm going a little bit off track here, but even when he went over to Kobbie Mainoo and was clearly having words with him about maybe this could be him in the future, that straight after winning a final and caring about the academy players that are there and taking it all in, just shows the type of manager Erik Ten Hag is, and he's honestly, for me, he's going to be a world-class manager the more he goes on at Manchester United. Brit A says we need to sell Maguire. He should have never lifted the trophy. It was ridiculous. Only played well when Bruno was captain. I mean, you can have your arguments over who should have lifted the trophy. Do I think Bruno should have lifted it? Yes. Would it also have caused a big stir if Bruno lifted it in the media? Would there have been a lot of questions surrounding that, uncomfortable questions towards Maguire? Yes, I can understand why they both did it. And I don't have a problem as long as we're winning, honestly, because I'd have a problem if Maguire was starting games over the likes of Varane or Martinez. Then I'd have a problem because he isn't worthy of starting them games over Varane or Martinez because he's not as good. So then if he was captain and just because he was captain he was starting games like as what happened over previous seasons, there would be an issue there. He's not really playing much. He's coming on for 10 or 15 minutes to see out a game, which does work. Bruno basically is the captain on the pitch. I think that's all we really need to focus on, if I'm being honest. But everyone obviously is allowed their opinions on how it goes down as well. And he got asked about the celebrations. He says the players were enthusiastic, they had to celebrate the moment, and he thought from his perspective everyone was involved in the celebrations. It was a great team celebration collectively, and he said the performance of the whole team and the squad and the celebrations was all collective. It was everybody involved, which again, Erik Ten Hag's done a brilliant job of making sure it is a team and everyone's involved. But also, he says, after the celebrations, he settled down and get back to work. It is about recovery. It is about the next game. Erik Ten Hag will be very, 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 very aware. Well, of course he'll be aware that West Ham is just round the corner. West Ham is a game that is in the FA Cup, which we are you look at the teams left, realistically, and this might come back to haunt me, but where Manchester United are right now, the only teams you think will be a tough game is Manchester City, obviously, Tottenham, Brighton. They're the teams that you look at and you think that could be tough. But they're all definitely beatable. So this is another competition where Erik Ten Hag could be getting to Wembley and winning another trophy. Imagine he wins the first available trophy and then the second available trophy to him. Like, that would be just brilliant. So he's going to be looking at the Carabao Cup. He's thinking, I want to do this again at the end of the season. This whole squad's going to want to do this again. Let's get back to work. Let's grind and let's make sure we get that second trophy under our belts. We can celebrate when the season finishes. Obviously, the celebrations are absolutely necessary. The whole squad have earned this, and all the fans were celebrating. The connection between the fans and the players was amazing to see. But at the same time, we don't want to get caught up in that and not be focused on the game on Wednesday against West Ham, which is another opportunity for a trophy. So again, it is the elite mentality from Erik Ten Hag, which is good. It is spreading across the whole team. As you can see, you saw Luke Shaw in his interview saying, it's back to work now. The manager's told us it's back to work. And when the man at the top sets his precedent and sets the detail and sets the standards to the highest level, it filters its way down, and that's what Erik Ten Hag's doing. And he got asked about the bad start to the season, which was an interesting question because, for me personally, I think we know why that happened. I think we know kind of what the situation was on how poorly Manchester United started, and we've seen the progress that Erik Ten Hag has made. So to take it back to them was strange for me. I would have preferred questions maybe about how we're going to deal with West Ham, what are West Ham's strengths and weaknesses, something more focused on the game. But he says about the bad start to the season, he answered the question. He says, I know from my experience of the previous job that it takes time to get into your way of playing, principles and routines. Time is not always going to go with the results. So he speaks about basically him coming into the pre-season, trying to set them standards and set them principles. But realistically, when he got into the season, I think is when the reality kicked in, because you only really can get a whole grasp on everything when you actually start playing competitive games. Erik Ten Hag sussed up very, very, very quickly after them first two games that the standards were nowhere near where they needed to be with this squad. They were nowhere where they needed to be, and the squad I don't think had really sussed out how strict and how elite Erik Ten Hag was going to be. So old habits were creeping in under previous managers, the likes of Ranić, the likes of Ollie. And I think that's what you saw at the start of the season. You saw a Manchester United team that was very, very low on confidence and had really poor old habits. Erik Ten Hag immediately makes them run the distance that Brentford ran more than them. They wouldn't have seen that coming, and he runs it with them as well. Again, adding the togetherness into it. So immediately, Erik Ten Hag's rushing the process of the players picking up his principles and picking up the routines because he's doing these drastic changes immediately, and he is honestly going in on these players, and he's making them do the extra workload, and he's covering all these bases. So I think that's why you've seen so much progress. For me personally, more progress than I ever expected in the course of these few months. I think the reason why you've seen it is because Erik Ten Hag made immediate changes and immediate impacts so early on after seeing the drasticness, like how drastic Manchester United did need to change from the start of the season, because let's be honest, it was poor then, but from then to now, it is a different team. Honestly, if you played me that Brentford game back now and then played me back the Barcelona game or the cup final we played, probably the Barcelona game, because I think personally it was probably a more high-level game. The cup final was great, we won it, but if you play them teams back, like, the difference is just absolutely phenomenal. It's like night and day. They're just not the same two teams at all. The confidence, the leadership, the addition of Casemiro, I could go into it all day. We spoke about it so much on this channel. But he's completely flipped Manchester United for the greater good. And honestly, going into that cup final under previous seasons, if we would have even got there, I would have been so nervous. Newcastle are a decent team. We went in, it was a professional performance. We scored the goals, we got our chances, we saw out the game with brilliant defensive work and players playing their part, and we won the game of football with ease, in my opinion. So it just really does look like a winning team now that kind of have this comfortability with playing with each other and have the confidence going into every game that they are going to win. And they talk a little bit about the game at Anfield as well, going into the game against Liverpool, which is obviously our next Premier League game on Sunday. There will be a press conference for that, but there was a question asked about whether he was going to be distracted by going into the game at Anfield with this game ahead of him, whether that's going to distract him from the game against West Ham on the Wednesday. And he says, as he usually does, every single game is important. Every game until now, the dressing room had the right attitude and the right approach game by game. So again, he reinstates the fact this team and this squad, they've got to be taking it game by game. Every single competition is important. And for me personally, this is why Erik Ten Hag's got so far into all competitions, because he's taking every single competition so seriously. And he's clearly got a massively detailed plan again about which minutes players are playing here, which players are playing there. Obviously, things can change through injury and through players performing as well. Performance levels can change. But Erik Ten Hag, I saw Melissa already speaking about this on Sky. The amount of detail this guy has and the planning and the preparation, it's no coincidence that Varane is, touch wood, touch wood, because honestly, I can't have this guy getting injured, but there is no coincidence that Varane hasn't really got injured this season. And again, everyone pray for Varane tonight because we don't want it to happen. But how often was Varane injured last season? On multiple occasions. This season, he's managed his game time to perfection, bringing the likes of Lindelof and Maguire in when needs be, and I think that will happen against West Ham, working out which games he can afford to do that for. He sort of prioritises certain games, but he also does it and still wins the game that he's kind of rotated on, because he knows exactly when to make these changes and he knows how it's going to balance out throughout the rest of the team. Tactically, he makes substitutions at the perfect times with resting players, but also bringing the right players on that fits the mould of the game. His management this season is been so impressive, and again, taking it game by game and focusing on each game and making sure every single cup competition is important and has full focus onto it is why I think we are the only team in Europe still in 4 competitions. I mean, we're not in the Carabao Cup now because we've won it, but we've won that. So technically we're still on for 4 competitions, and that's by no means am I saying we're going to win all them, but the fact we're in this position shows how good Erik Ten Hag has managed this. A few comments in the chat saying Malacia will do a good job in the place of Shaw. Exactly. And the reason being is because Malacia has been brought into this team, he's been moulded into the team, and he's played a good amount of minutes. He's got a good amount of minutes under his belt, very good minutes as well. Against Manchester City, against Liverpool, like he's played at a high level. Malacia, I have no issue with him coming in whatsoever. Ollie would be a great striking coach, potentially because he was a striker, but he wasn't a good coach for Manchester United, in my opinion, but we'll put it that way. And Andreas J says, will Maguire start tomorrow? I think he probably will. It's going to either be Maguire or Lindelof in place of Varane, in my opinion. I think Shaw, obviously Shaw, because Shaw is potentially injured, Malacia will start, and therefore I think he'll shore that up with Martinez playing again. I think Martinez can afford to do that, so I think Maguire or Lindelof will start. I would assume it'd be Maguire because he came on at the weekend. Obviously, he's just lifted the trophy. He's been speaking about how Erik Ten Hag believes in him and thinks he's a top-class centre-back that can play a part in this team. So it could be either or, Maguire or Lindelof, I think. Danny In says, score prediction for tomorrow, Beth. Also, love your work on this channel. Pray for Varane. Score prediction for tomorrow is obviously just typical for us that West Ham come off the back of a 4-0 win after they've been crap all season, and then we play them. That's usually the way it goes. I mean, we played Leicester after they battered Spurs, didn't we? And then they go in and put a god-awful performance in against Arsenal after we beat them. It's just typical. I'm not making excuses, but it is really typical. But I'm going to go for, because I think the team's going to be slightly rotated, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Manchester United. Or should I go 2-1? No, I want to go 2-0. I want to go 2-0. I think the confidence will be rife. And I don't think West Ham have much that can hurt us. Potentially 2-0 or 2-1 I would go for. Get your predictions in the chat as well. But I think we will win this. I think the momentum, pushing through Europa League, winning the Carabao Cup, Anfield on Sunday, I think it's all going to push us through. And I think we're going to win it, especially at home. Especially at home. And Bruno rested and Sancho can play 10. That is an option. I don't want to rotate too much though, because I still want the consistency to be there. And obviously Bruno is a massive one in terms of his captaincy is massively missed within the team if he doesn't play. And his leadership, his work rate. So he's kind of one of them players for me that is undroppable, and I know the amount of minutes he's playing is insane. So I'd be surprised if Bruno got rotated, but it could happen. As long as there is at least one of Casemiro, Varane or Bruno on the pitch, like a proper leader in there, I would be okay with it, but Varane's definitely going to get rested, so that isn't even an option. Casemiro potentially might get rested, I'm not sure. Bruno does seem to be one of them players for Erik Ten Hag. I think he's played the most minutes out of everyone, even more than De Gea. So he is one of them that is undroppable to him, so I do see him to play. A lot of people confident 2-1, 1-0, 3-0, 1-0, 2-1. There's a lot of score predictions for Man United winning the game coming in the chat, which I'm glad the confidence is up. It absolutely should be. Absolutely should be 100%. So that is kind of it for what Erik Ten Hag said in the press conference and the questions he got asked apart from the embargo section. So that is kind of it, that what we've had from Erik Ten Hag and the answers he got put forward. I would have liked maybe a few more questions asked towards West Ham and how he's going to stop them and potentially a little bit more detailed questions, but they're the questions that we got and they're the answers he gave. Again, I think Erik Ten Hag was brilliant in kind of putting the answers across the questions he got asked. He just knows what it is to be a Manchester United manager, 100%. He knows what it is. But for the last 5 minutes of the show, I'm going to go through a little starting 11 of who potentially might play tomorrow and how much rotation we would be having. So I'm going to start with the chat. So make sure you get your answers in on this. Hit a like, subscribe, and make sure you get your answers in previewing tomorrow's game. And I'm just going to start with first of all, is it going to be David De Gea or is he going to give Butland or Heaton a chance? We've seen Heaton play a couple times. Butland hasn't started yet. So do you think he's going to give Butland or Heaton a chance? Or is it going to be David De Gea? Get your comments in now. Personally, I think he'll stick with David De Gea. He's just the best goalkeeper out of all three. And I don't see why he would change it. But then again, he has done it in the past to give him a little bit of game time. So I'm not sure. Andreas J says Butland will start, I think. I mean, he's not had a chance yet. I think this is probably one of the only games he has the opportunity to start for the rest of the season because they're all going to be so important. When you look at maybe getting through this round as the FA Cup, depending who you get next, the games, as you get further into the competition, become even more important that you have to win them. Therefore, you'd think you'd go with De Gea. Right now, at this stage, maybe Butland can play. But again, we are playing West Ham, which is a very good team. We've got to make sure we get this win. So I'm not sure on this one. I would probably say, I think De Gea would start, but you never know. It could be Butland or it could be Heaton on this one. And also, starting to think about a right-back as well and what right-back is going to play for Erik Ten Hag. So we know it's going to be Dalot or Wan-Bissaka. That's 100%. I don't think we're going to see anything different than that. But would you go with Dalot or Wan-Bissaka on this game? In my opinion, I would go with Dalot. I think it just depends who's going to be playing at Anfield. And for me personally, I think Wan-Bissaka should play at Anfield. I just think defensively he's a little bit stronger than Dalot right now. And obviously Anfield's always going to be a big game despite how rubbish Liverpool have been recently. And they have got players that can hurt you. So for me personally, I'd play Dalot in this game because I think he can definitely do more damage and help out in attack in the West Ham game, especially because you're at home, you're kind of more on the front foot. So I would go with Dalot personally. But get in the comments down below whether you would go with Wan-Bissaka. A few people saying Wan-Bissaka, but I think a lot of people going with Dalot. I think Dalot just makes sense. Away from home, I think Wan-Bissaka's the better option and he's going to have to be focused and switched on, thinking about Liverpool's attacking plays that can hurt you. At home, Dalot can get forward, he can interlink with the midfield, create chances, and we're going to be more on the front foot, so I think it suits Dalot a little bit more. And I think Wan-Bissaka will start tomorrow, Dalot on Sunday. It just depends who Erik Ten Hag probably sees as more suited to each game, and I'm sure Erik Ten Hag will make that decision. It does seem like Dalot just maybe has the nod ahead of Wan-Bissaka recently, but I think Wan-Bissaka is definitely in contention. Lynn Hall says, what's with the Rashford situation? Missed it, definitely carrying an injury in the final. He'll be surely rested tomorrow. Yeah, we will get on to Rashford, but there wasn't actually anything said about Rashford, I don't think, in this section of the press conference from what I could see and what I could hear when I was watching it. So I would have thought someone should have asked that question, but I think with the Rashford situation, it was just a minor injury. I think he was slightly carrying it yesterday, but obviously it was a cup final. He obviously did get brought off the pitch to rest him, and I'm probably 99% sure Rashford won't play midweek against West Ham, or if he does, it'll be off the bench. He definitely won't start, so with the Rashford situation, he has to be benched because we need him fresh and ready to absolutely cook Trent Alexander-Arnold on Sunday at Anfield in their own backyard, because that is something I'm going to be excited to see. Trent at the moment, he defensively is just so bad, and Rashford's obviously kind of cutting through players for fun, so that could be a good matchup right now. But then we move on to the centre-backs. Varane will be rested, put it out there. I'm basically 99.9% sure, I could bet my house on it, that Varane will be rested. So in the sense of that, would you rather see Maguire or Lindelof come in instead of Varane? Who would you be more comfortable with playing in this game? So we can see kind of who's going to complement it better with Martinez as well. In my opinion, I think Martinez and Lindelof have played very well together in the past, so I would personally want to go with Lindelof. I think Lindelof's better than Maguire. That's just my personal opinion. I know Maguire's captain, but I think Lindelof's a better centre-back than Maguire. Lindelof obviously didn't even play a minute in the cup final. I would go with Lindelof if I'm being honest. Someone said Jones and Maguire duo. I think more people are definitely going for Lindelof over Maguire. Everyone's going for Lindelof. I think that's an easy kind of person to kind of take out, and you can understand why the fans in the chat want to go for Lindelof. I think he's performed better than Maguire this season. So as a starting position, I think he will play, but I would not be surprised if you see Maguire either. I do think Martinez will start just to kind of cover that left-hand side with Malacia coming in. I'd more than trust Malacia to come in, by the way. I think Malacia he's a great player that's going to be in the future getting a lot more minutes for Manchester United, and he's a great squad player to have. But I'd have Martinez there just for the security and also for that leadership as well from the back, because we know how good he has been. Again, another world-class performance from him at the weekend in the final. I think he was up there for man of the match. Across the midfield, it is interesting because you obviously have Casemiro that could play, but with rotation, I think it might be McTominay. I think Sabitzer's nailed on to start, and I think Bruno will still start this game because we know this guy he's unbreakable. He can play every minute of every game, and he generally is unbreakable. He's looking a little bit tired, but the amount of minutes he plays is seriously underrated. And then when you look at the front three, I would expect Garnacho to play, definitely. Up-and-coming talent. I would expect Anthony to play because obviously he's just come back from injury. I think getting his game time and his fitness up, I think he's going to play. And then down the middle, I would expect either maybe Weghorst or Elanga, but I think that's too weak. I think it's too weak to go with Elanga, so I'd probably expect Weghorst in there we know how fit he is, and we know he's kind of been getting substituted early on in these games, so he's not been playing as many minutes as some of the others in the forward line. So I think it could be a good opportunity for Weghorst to score his first Old Trafford goal as well. So yeah, that team would still give me some comfortability going into that game, and I still think we'll beat West Ham. At the end of the day, West Ham are in a relegation fight. So will they really be putting out their strongest team when they've got to go at the weekend and they have to win? They're at risk of being relegated. So West Ham will have their kind of focus on the other games as well, especially in the Premier League. So I expect Manchester United to get through this game. I really do. I think we'll do it with ease, but hopefully I am right about that and we do manage to stay in the FA Cup. More trophies, please. More Wembley visits on the way for sure. I hope. N.O. Jumper says, Beth, would you sell Sancho end of the season? God, that's one of them questions I didn't expect to see at the end of the show. No, I wouldn't sell Sancho. I think there's a player there. I think under Ten Hag is the best chance he has to develop and become a regular into that Manchester United team. I think he's shown what he's about since he came back from his training in the Netherlands and his time at the team. Still think there's a lot more that he can give to the team. I still think there's a lot more to come from him. I think he's just finding his feet a little bit. I wouldn't sell him, and we obviously paid a lot of money for him as well. So you want him to work. You do want him to work, and he does seem to be part of that team now, obviously, Bruno, Rashford, and I think he's just going to develop more and more, and I hope that is the case under Ten Hag. So, yeah, I would definitely keep Sancho. I wouldn't sell him. But thank you, everyone, for getting your comments into the chat and listening to the press conference reaction with me. Mark will be back a little bit later. We'll be covering, obviously, the 8 p.m. show, and we've also got, nearly forgot, we've got Adam's show with Rob Dawson coming at 4 p.m, Adam Talks as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Right round the corner, I will be watching it live from the studio, so make sure you're in the chat watching it too and getting your comments in. And it'll be really interesting interview, especially when you're thinking about the ownership recently with Manchester United. And the stuff that Rob Dawson's come out with is been some good stuff recently, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Hopefully we get the result against West Ham tomorrow. 7:45 kickoff at Old Trafford, and yeah, make sure you stay tuned on all platforms for the content we're putting out. But thank you everyone for watching. Hit a like, make sure you subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.